Back. So we were talking about a port. A computer port is a type of electronic software or programming related docking point through which information flows from a program on your computer or to your computer from the internet or another computer in a network. A network is a series of computers that are physically or electronically linked. If you can send an email to some computer, you are networked, right? So, in that network, you should be able to send and receive information. Now, all the information cannot be just sent through only one particular channel. That's when you will have a jam. You have too much information. So, you need to separate out these pieces of information, and that's why you have different ports. So, in computer terms, a computer or a program connects to somewhere or something else on the internet via a port. Port numbers and the user's IP address combine into who does what, information kept by internet service providers. So, here, when you have your computer address, that's the first part of it, and here is the port number. So that port is specifically for some particular piece of information. This port is for something else. This port is for yet something else. Okay, so your address along with the port, the entire address together tells you exactly which particular information or which unit is being handled at this particular port, at this particular position. All right. Now, a port is a number ranging from 0 to 65,535. So this is 16 bits. Remember, one bit is two positions. So 16 bits is 2 to the power 16, which is 65,536. So including 0, you have those many possible port numbers. There are established conventions for using certain port numbers for certain types of activities. All right. So you don't send everyone to whichever port you feel like. Certain ports are specified for certain type of activities. For example, the HTTP, that goes to port 80. HTTPS goes to port 443. In other words, instead of saying HTTP colon for double forward slash www.google.com, you can simply type google.com colon 80. That takes you to the HTTP port basically, and google.com colon 443 takes you to HTTPS protocol. All right, S for secured basically. All right, HTTP, if you remember, was hypertext transfer protocol. Okay, it's for information exchange. Now, there are rather commonly used port numbers. Here is a link where you can find port numbers. So you can simply say common port numbers. When you go there, you will find several websites. I found this rather useful. List of well-known TCP port numbers, and here you have port numbers and their description, what they do. All right. Okay. Now, a network socket. What is a socket? To manage the use of a specific network connection, programmers rely upon an abstraction known as socket. Okay. To use a specific network connection, you have to create a socket. You can create several sockets, by the way. And one socket can go to one particular network connection and another to another. So, what is a socket? Socket is one endpoint of a two-way communication link between two programs running on the network. So, you can have a socket from a computer to itself. Yeah, you can have a socket from a computer to a neighboring computer. You can have a socket from your connecting from your computer to some computer across the ocean. That's okay. A socket is the combination of an IP address plus a port. That's a socket. For example, if you're looking at the Google website, then there is a connection between your computer and the Google server. Your computer's IP address plus port is the socket at your end. Google's number and its port is the socket at the other end. For a connection between two machines, a separate socket is maintained at each end, used to track the incoming outgoing data for that machine. As a programmer, the socket serves as the interface for sending or receiving data. In Python, this is modeled using a socket class. Okay, there is a class called socket class from which you can import the socket constructor. Okay, so that class socket has been imported from the socket module. All right, S equals socket constructor creates a socket. You can now connect via this port to this website. Connect, yeah. Now, there are several behaviors of a socket. Um, these are methods for your socket S, and they kind of they can be rather dry right now, but when you start playing with them, you will understand them better. Okay, so S dot connect host port. S dot connect, that's your host, that's your port. That's how you connect. All right, it connects your socket to the remote host at the specified port, raising an error if the connection fails. All right, S dot send, you're sending data. Data is usually given in the string format. S dot receive, RECV, this receives information up to a maximum number of characters. Okay, so is so what do you receive? You receive a string of character that have been received from the remote host up to specified number, maximum number. If fewer characters are returned, this means that no further characters are currently available. If an empty string is returned, this signifies that the connection is no longer open. If the connection is open yet no new data has been received, this call waits indefinitely before returning. S dot close, don't forget to disconnect your socket. All right. Here are some more socket commands. S dot bind. Okay. Binding is what is done from the client side, from the server side. Okay. Bind is different from connect. Bind is called assigning a name to socket. It associates the socket with its local address. The server side binds, okay, whereas the clients connect. Connect is used to connect to a remote server address. Connect is on the client side. Listen, socket.listen, this happens on the server side. Send, it's used to transmit data to the remote host. The parameter, what do you send, is written inside. It is a string. Receive method is used to receive data, and the parameter is to say how many characters you are willing to accept. Client connects to the server. Okay. An analogy is, say an applicant calls an employer for a job. Note, the employer does not even need to know the existence of an applicant, right? So say there is a server sitting somewhere else, right, in California. I want to connect to that server. That server in California does not even know that I exist. All right, but I need to know the address of that server to be able to connect. You understand? So, likewise, the server does not even need to know the existence of a client, but the client needs to know the existence and the address of the server. The client and the server have their own steps in establishing their own sockets. From the client side, I will create a socket using the socket method, connect my socket to the address of the server using the connect method, send and receive data, typically using write and read methods. Whereas what about the server on the say sitting in California? The server creates a socket using the socket method, binds the socket to an address using the bind method, and then it listens. That's all. Okay? The server might accept, right? The accept method extracts the first connection request on the queue. So many people might be standing in a queue, but the first one, so it's first come first basis. All right, so here is a server, has a socket which gets bound, so use the bind method, and now it's listening. Somebody reaches out, accept. Okay, accept to hear what is going on, either read or write, process whatever is required. Whereas here we are the client, we have create our own socket, we use our socket to connect to the server, we send information using write, we receive information using read, and don't forget to close our respective sockets. Okay, if we don't forget to close our respective sockets, that's when our computers get hacked. All right. So there are different responses. When a call to receive is made, there are 4 possible responses. First response, the call returns a string. Okay, so one, say I ask for some information, right? When a call to receive is made, so the call returns a string, or the call returns less data because there is no more data. Another option, there is no additional data available. So you can wait indefinitely for more data to be received through the network. Fourth response, the call returns an empty string. Okay, this indicates that the connection has been closed either by the remote, and then we can terminate. Let's see a few examples, right? So let's open idle. Okay, and in my next video I will see a few examples of how the socket method is to be socket class is to be used, just basic examples. All right, until then.